Now, let us look at an example with lead and lag in project scheduling. We are presented with this table that has activities A up to I, with predecessors having finished to start relationships with lag and leads, with their durations also in a separate column. Let us draw a Gantt chart first, with the activity on the vertical array and the duration on the horizontal arrays. We start with activity A, which has no predecessor. So that will be 4, starting from 0. And activity B, which has a predecessor activity as A with a lead of 2. That means it moves to the negative side by 2 days. Or, in other words, it starts when activity A is about 2 days in progress. So we have activity B starting from day 2 and ending on day 6. Then we have C, which is a predecessor of A with a lag of 2 days. Means activity C will start on the 6th day. Activity D has a predecessor B with no lead or lag, and hence we start upon the completion of activity B. So it will start on the day 6. Activity E has a predecessor as C with a lag of 2 days, which means activity E will start on the 10th. Activity F has B as its predecessor, a lead of 3 days. It means it goes back by 3 from the end of activity B. So this will start on day 3. Activity G has predecessors D and F. For D, it has a lead of 2. And so if this is D, it means the activity will start on day 7. Then activity H is a predecessor of E with a lead of 3 days, means activity H will start on day 12. And activity I with preceding activities as G and H would start after a lag of 2 days from activity H. So we have that, and this gives us a completion of 21 days. So let's draw the relationship, the finish to start lead and lag relationship. So our relationships have been drawn, and it looks as what we are seeing, with a total duration of 21 days. Let us try and present this in a precedence diagram. So with our precedent notations, we have activity A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I. And we have the linkages indicated with the finish to start, lead, and lags also indicated between the activities. Let's have the durations all entered. So A is 4, B is 4, C is 4, D is 3, F is 2, E is 5, G is 4, H is 4, and I is 3. Let's start with the forward pass. Starting with activity A, we have 0 plus 4 giving us 4. Now let's proceed with activity B with a lead of 2. It means it will commence earlier than the completion of activity A. So instead of the early finish being the early start for activity B, we are going to minus it by 2. So the early start of activity B becomes 2. And when you add that to 4, you get 6 as its early finish. For activity C, it has a lag of 2. So 2 adds to 4 becomes 6. And when you add 6 to 3, you get 8. Now let's proceed to activity D, E, and F. Let's deal with activity D. So there is no finish to start, lead, or lag between activity B and D. So the early finish of activity B becomes the early start for activity D. The early finish for activity D is 6 plus 3 gives us 9. Let's look at activity E. For E, there is a lag of 2, and therefore we add 2 to 8 and get 10 for the early start for activity E. So the early finish for activity E then becomes 15. For activity F, there is a lead of 3 days, and therefore F starts 3 days after B has commenced. And therefore we have 3 minus 6 minus 3 giving us 3. And then that becomes the early start for activity F plus the duration gives us the early finish of activity F as 5. Now let's look at G. The relationship between D and G is a lead of 2, and that from F to G has no lead or lag relationship. And therefore in this case, we have 9 minus 2 giving us 7, and which is the highest, because even if F finishes by day 5, D wouldn't have finished by day 7. So 7 then becomes the early start for activity G with a lead of 2 days. Now let's look at H, which has a lead of 3 days. So 3 minus 15 is 12. And 12 plus 4 is 16. Now the highest goes to I, and therefore between H and I is a lag of 2 days, and between G and I is no lead or lag, and therefore 18 becomes the value for the early start of activity I. So the early finish activity to complete the forward pass is 18 plus 3 giving us 21. Now, as we learned in our previous lessons, the early finish becomes the late finish of the last activity. So we repeat 21 as we commence the backward pass. So 21 minus 3 is 18. Now, in the backward pass, every lag reduces as it proceeds in the backward pass, and every lead becomes an addition as we proceed on the backward pass. So in this case, from activity I to H, we have a lag of 2, and therefore the late finish for activity H will be 16, and 16 minus 4 is 12. For D, the 18 will proceed without any deduction or addition. And 18 minus 4 is 14. Now let's get to F. Between F and G, there is no lead or lag, so the 14 becomes the late finish for activity F. And the latest start becomes 12 because 2 out of 14 is 12. Now let's look at what happens to E. Since we have a lead of 3, we add 3 to 12 and it becomes 15, and 15 minus 5 becomes 10. What happens to D? D has an addition of 2 to the 14, it becomes 16. 16 minus 3 is 13. Then what happens to C? C has a lag of 2 and therefore will lead to a reduction of 2 as it becomes the latest finish for activity C. So we have 8. 8 minus 2 is 6. And for activity B, between D and F, for the relationship between B and F is a lead, which requires that 3 will be added to 12 to make 15, and D has 13. So we choose the lowest, which is 13, and 13 minus 4 becomes 9. Now the least will be choosing to get to activity A. Where there is a lag, you add. Where there is a lead, you subtract. So this, for the relationship between A and B, will become 7, and the relationship between A and C will require that so for a lag of 2, we take 2 out of 6 and that becomes 4, and 4 out of 4 becomes 0. Now let's find the floats. For A, we have a float of 0, for C 0, for E 0, for H 0, and for I 0. The others are not critical path, so we determine their floats. For B is 7, for F is 9, for D is 7, and for G is 7. So the critical path is A, C, E, H, and I. And this is how the lead and lag affects the network diagram. And this also accelerates the construction process, as leads tend to commence activities, independent or dependent activities within shorter period when the preceding activities have commenced.